Hey everybody, this is Mr. MegaManFan. Like, share, comment, subscribe. You know all the things to do, but today the thing to do is talk about AtariAge.com because Albert broke some big news on the forums this morning and I'm going to share it all with you right here. This is what Albert had to say. Greetings! I have an important announcement to make to the AtariAge community and I'll cut right to the chase. AtariAge has agreed to be acquired by Atari, and I have come on as a full-time employee at Atari. This won't be a surprise to some of you, given the speculation I've seen over the past month. Now let me stop right there and talk about that speculation, because Al recently delisted a bunch of games from the AtariAge store, which we suspected was an intellectual property rights issue, but other people suspected it might be because Al was going to do something with the website. And the result of all that speculation is we now know exactly what he did. But let me continue with his statement. The first thing I'd like to say is this is not a decision I made lightly. If you asked me 20 years ago if I would have considered working for Atari, much less selling AtariAge to Atari, I would have said no. But fast forward to the present, and this is the first version of Atari I've seen since the 1980s that is taking many positive steps to restore the magic that we all associated with the original company. The Atari that left so many of us with enduring memories of experiencing the 2600 for the first time, learning to program on an Atari 800, or pumping quarters into amazing arcade games produced by Atari in the heyday of arcades. I've got to say he's hitting it right on the head with that, because I'm in that age demo where I grew up. I didn't own an Atari 2600, but I played them at the stores when there were demo units available. I played them at my friends' houses when they had one. So I grew up playing 2600 games. I didn't have an Atari 800. I had a Commodore, but that didn't stop me from appreciating Atari computers when I had that same chance, just like I appreciated a 2600 whenever I got to play someone. So I think arcade games is the biggest takeaway there, because I absolutely loved playing games like Asteroids in the arcade. That was a childhood staple right there. Whether I could own my own home console or not, I could always talk my parents into a quarter to play Asteroids. So love to see that this current version of Atari is, like he said, respecting the legacy of those great games and great consoles with things like the Atari 50 compilation that came out on Switch, Xbox, PS5, just about everything else. There's a lot of good things going on for Atari right now. Let me continue with his statement. Atari is now taking its retro-related IP seriously and creating a wide array of hardware and software based on that IP, while also creating new original content. It is very exciting to see Atari release a 2600 Plus. A brand new 2600 you can feed actual cartridges. And without giving anything specific away, this is just the beginning of what we're going to see from Atari going forward. Atari, for the first time in years, is targeting and embracing enthusiasts like ourselves, while also making products that appeal to those who grew up with Atari and have a fond nostalgia of the brand, but aren't steeped in retro gaming like we are. Now, as for that 2600 Plus, I have placed a pre-order for it. I'm looking forward to trying it. The compatibility list left a few games off that, for whatever reason, they didn't test, but it says it will work with the majority of 2600 and 7800 games that exist. And since I've got a bunch of cartridges for both of those systems, I will be able to test the ones that they didn't and find out how well they work. Some people have expressed concern that it's just going to be a glorified Retron 77, but I think it's going to turn out better than that. And in the end, well, the Retron, if you use custom firmware with it, it wasn't really so bad. It made it a lot better. But I think you're not even going to need custom firmware for the 2600 Plus. I think since it's already compatible with 2600 and 7800 games, they've done a little more quality assurance than Hyperkin did with the Retron 77. And the fact they have a compatibility list of games proves that they've actually done their legwork, which is what Al is talking about. They've actually got an Atari right now that respects their retro IP and respects retro enthusiasts and wants to make products for us that are actually functional out of the box, as opposed to having to be modded to become functional, which has been... I don't want to dig on Hyperkid too much, but that's been one of the biggest problems with Hyperkid is they release products and the community has to fix them. Like that GBA module that they made, that the GBA emulation was out of the box just not any good. So it's nice to see a company that's doing it the right way. Back to Al's statement. I'm very excited to be working for Atari, and with Atari's resources, I will be able to make significant improvements to AtariAge over time. This also opens up new opportunities for homebrew developers, where original games created by the amazingly talented community at AtariAge will have a much broader audience. I think that's a key point right there as well, the fact that homebrew games could be officially published by Atari, either digitally or physically, for the Atari VCS or the 2600 Plus. I think that's going to be great for those homebrew programmers who've long been showcasing their talents on AtariAge, and I look forward to seeing how that pans out. Al continues, my role at Atari will be multifaceted, but my primary tasks, especially early on, will be to operate AtariAge as I have been doing for the past 2 decades. This includes managing the forums in the AtariAge store. Longer term, I will have more time to significantly update the game's database, something I've wanted to do for some time, but simply have not had the bandwidth for. And I will be moving the store early in the new year to a new e-commerce platform, something I've wanted to accomplish for a while now. And I could see that as being a really big reason for Al doing this, is having to run the manufacturing side of AtariAge, having to put the cartridges together and package up the complete box games and do all the shipping and all that himself. That's a lot of work for basically a one-man crew. And having Atari take over some or all of that business for him could be extremely helpful. So I can understand why, because we're not getting any younger. I mean, we're celebrating 50 years of Atari, right? So let's think about it that way. If you're old enough to have been around for that entire time, you're older than 50. And Al's not young and I'm not young, so I can understand why he would want to shift some of those burdens over to somebody else. I don't think anybody can blame him for that. Since AtariAge's modest beginnings in April 2001, AtariAge has grown significantly. The earliest version of the site only contained the game's database and forum, with the store coming later with a handful of titles. Fast forward to 2023, and I've published hundreds of games for a variety of consoles, and that shows no signs of slowing down. Not to make it too personal, but I was there for the beginning. When I say I've been on AtariAge for over 20 years, that's what I mean. I met Al. There were actually 2 Als back then at the Classic Gaming Expo in Las Vegas. And Al Yaruso has been with it for the entire time, and he's done an amazing job of championing all things Atari. So my hat's off to him for all the work he's done over the years with the site, with the homebrew games, with the store. He's constantly been excellent at this, and he's given us so much that it's nice to see him get something in return as well. There is an incredible... back to his statement if I didn't already say it. There is an incredible community of talented developers, programmers, pixel artists, musicians, sound engineers, artists, and designers, all weaving their magic to create amazing games with stunning packaging. It is remarkable the talent that is involved in creating these new games, as well as new hardware, and I'm honored that so many have allowed me to publish their games in physical form in the AtariAge store over the years. The store has also allowed AtariAge to exist without placing advertising on the site, and we intend to maintain that ad-free policy going forward. So I think a lot of people were concerned about the sale of AtariAge, meaning that the new owners were going to plaster it with ads everywhere, and Al is saying that, well, that's not going to happen according to him. So I take him at his word, because Al has been a man of his word all these years. While I have greatly enjoyed running AtariAge and the amazing community that evolved with this journey, it has taken an increasingly large amount of my time to manage. I had come to the point where I needed to make some sort of change, and I began scheming on ideas that would reduce the amount of time it takes me to build and ship games. Well, that's exactly what I was talking about. That was getting to be a huge burden for him. And I have really not been happy that the games database has languished over the years, as that was always an enjoyable area of the site for me to work on. Early last year, Atari approached me about the possibility of working more closely together. Talks were slow at first, but then accelerated at the beginning of this year, and after months of going back and forth, we worked out a deal that benefits both parties. What does this mean? Short term, nothing is going to change. I will continue running the AtariAge website, including the forums in the store. Nothing is going to be neutered in the forums. Let's key on that one. Nothing is going to be neutered. He's saying no censorship from Atari. And Atari will not have access to personal conversations, private forums and clubs, and so forth. No content is going to be removed from the forum, and those posting will not be liable for anything they post, which was already the case. I will be running the store, building games, shipping games, and publishing new games. In fact, I'm working on 20 new games for a variety of platforms for the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. Over time, with Atari's help, I will be able to more efficiently produce and ship these games without sacrificing quality, which is very important to me. And if you're an Atari fan, that's important to you too, because the quality of Atari's box games, as I've showed off in the homebrew reviews, the AtariAge homebrew games are top-notch when it comes to full-color box, full-color manual, cartridge with really nice label, and they always work. So you can't fault the quality of the products. And if Al can get his new corporate partner Atari to continue to keep that quality up, I look forward to seeing future AtariAge releases, whether he produces them himself or Atari does. But back to his statement. This will free up more of my time to make improvements to other areas of AtariAge and embark on new and exciting projects. Working with Atari was one of several possible solutions to bring sanity back to my life. Other possibilities included shutting the site down and walking away, taking the store down and leaving the forum and games database, or some combination of the above. Or I could have just sold to some entity, whether it be Atari or another company or individual, without further involvement from me. However, it was very important to me to find a solution that allowed me to keep the forums and store running with my involvement. Working with Atari was the best way to do so, while working toward the goal of reducing the hours I'm working every week, while opening up new and interesting ways for Atari and AtariAge to work together that weren't available previously. So again, you can understand this. After over 20 years, Al needed to shift some of the weight off his shoulders, and if you can fault him for that, then you don't have much empathy or sympathy as a human being. And I can't imagine that if you're watching this, you would feel negatively towards Al doing this, because he's made it clear here he tried to find the best solution for everybody involved, not to harm the AtariAge community and not to harm the Atari brand, but also to take some measure to relieve his stress. And I know it's been a lot of work for him, because I've been there behind the scenes helping him make cartridges for our convention. So I know just how much work it takes, and I can't blame him. Again, I gotta say, I respect his decision in every way here. AtariAge will still have a large 45 by 30 booth at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, 50% larger than any booth we've had in the past. I expect this to continue each year going forward, with the possibility of attending additional events rather than just PRGE. One fun thing we're going to do this year with the extra space is have several Atari 2600 consoles on display, complete with a large assortment of games to play on them, including homebrews. So if you were concerned about the compatibility of the Atari 2600 Plus, how well it was going to work, you're actually going to get a chance to try it first at PRG before those of us who pre-ordered it, like me, even get one in our hands. This is a long statement. There's a lot to go through, so let's just keep going. Al says, as I mentioned above, this opens up new avenues for homebrew authors. Atari is interested in bringing more content to their VCS platform, and a few homebrew authors have already been working with Atari to sell their games on the VCS, such as with Amoeba Jump and Tower of Rubble. Such arrangements don't affect the AtariAge store. I plan on offering digital downloads in the store once I get the store moved to new software, which will be a primary focus of mine once I get through several other major tasks. There's also the possibility of original homebrew games being released in physical form under the Atari label if they do well in the AtariAge store. With the new 2600 plus console, Atari is interested in compelling original content to augment that platform, and of course the XP line will continue along as well. And I anticipate many other interesting possibilities over time. I feel this will greatly benefit the homebrew community, homebrew authors, and everyone who loves seeing new games for the 2600 and other classic systems. So there you have it. I really don't think you could state that the 2600 Plus is going to be broadly compatible with a wide variety of things any better than that. If they're saying, we want homebrew games in the pipeline for the 2600 Plus, that means a lot of homebrews are going to work on the system. There might be a few that don't, but they're looking at making them work on the system. So whatever kind of emulation or compatibility is inside a 2600 Plus, it's got to be pretty high up there if they're looking at homebrew games working on it in the future to augment the pipeline, as they say, to make everything more feature friendly, to bring you more games for this console instead of just being stuck with a library of known games that are compatible with it. Which, going back to the Retron, that was the problem. Only a limited set of games worked with it out of the box, unless you customize it with firmware from the AtariAge community. Back to Al. I want to thank all the homebrew developers who've allowed me to publish their games. You are a very important reason that AtariAge thrived and why it remains an ad-free website. It's very rewarding to help authors realize their games in physical form with beautiful packaging. Your creations have kept the Atari 2600 and many other classic consoles fresh in our minds. I look forward to working with all of you to expand the library of amazing games for consoles and computers. I also want to express extreme gratitude to the moderators who've helped me maintain some semblance of sanity over the forums, especially the global moderators who have purview over the entire forum. I greatly appreciate the time you've put in, as it is impossible for me to see everything that is posted. Without you, the AtariAge forums would not exist. Here's to another 20 years of discussing a wide variety of retro gaming topics on AtariAge. Thank you for reading and take care, Al. Well, Al, congratulations on this bold new step for you for AtariAge, and hopefully a fruitful relation. I get tongue-tied trying to say all this stuff. Fruitful relationship between you and Atari, and AtariAge.com will benefit from this sale, and us in the community of AtariAge users will also benefit from you being able to continue the site without having to fold it because it was just getting to be too much for you. If you look at it, if you look at the bottom line and you look at it that way, the site could have gone away completely. The store could have gone away. The forums could have gone away. The whole thing could have gone away. And that wouldn't have been good for anyone. This is the best solution for everyone involved. To me, it's a win-win. And I know some people are cautiously optimistic and other people are outright pessimistic. I'm leaning more toward the side of, I think this will be good in the long term for everybody. I don't see a bad side to this right now. If Atari came in and censored the forums and deleted content, that's the worst possible outcome. But the site going away would have been an even worse outcome. So really, I think this is all for the best. So Congratulations, Al. I look forward to the next chapter of AtariAge. And thank you all for listening, watching, reading.